Extreme activist Jizz Maxwell feeling bad for Prince Andrew, Heaven's Gate webmasters, and British politicians under threat from imprisoned stalkers. Hello and welcome to this update of the Cult News. I'm your speaker Casey, host of the Cult Vault podcast, and if you find this content interesting or helpful, please consider giving the episode a like and subscribing to the channel. You can also find me on Patreon at patreon.com/The Cult Vault for ad-free and exclusive content. And now, on to the news. CBS News has an article this week about a Mexican priest who goes by the name of Father Pistolas, who has allegedly advised parishioners to carry guns to fight off drug cartels. Mexico's Roman Catholic Church has supposedly suspended a Mexican priest after Alfredo Gallegos, aka Father Pistolas, encouraged his congregants to bear arms in a violence-plagued Western state. According to the article, Gallegos has had his title suspended indefinitely after being admonished for a number of other infractions. Gallegos has been quoted as preaching in sermons, saying, quote, "The cartel gunmen come, they take the livestock, they screw your wife and daughter, and you do nothing. Well, get yourself a gun, the government can go to hell. We have to defend our lives." Just Stop Oil protesters are back in the extreme activism space again, as reported by Sky News. The environmental group have staged various protests over the past couple of weeks, including gluing themselves to roads and walls and throwing tomato soup over the famous Sunflowers artwork by artist Vincent van Gogh in the National Gallery. The latest event took place at the Aston Martin showroom in Park Lane, where Just Stop Oil activists spray-painted the London showroom in orange paint. The movement are calling for the government to put a halt to all new oil and gas licences, and were filmed gluing themselves to the road in Park Lane and spraying the front of the showroom. These protests come after Home Secretary Suella Braverman outlined plans to crack down on such protests, and even though the London Underground has an order out against a similar group called Insulate Britain, there are calls for one to be taken out on this group too. Former British socialite and imprisoned sex offender Jizz Maxwell is in the news this week after conducting her first interview since her sentencing, and has spoken out about her sadness for her so-called friend Prince Andrew. In the Guardian article by Josh Halliday, details about Maxwell's first extensive interview from a US prison state how Maxwell feels bad for her dear friend who was stripped of his royal duties following his close ties and connections to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Speaking to the Israeli-American documentary filmmaker Daphne Baruch, Maxwell said, "I feel so bad for him. I follow what is happening to him. I accept that this friendship could not survive my conviction. He is paying such a price for the association. I consider him a dear friend. I care about him." The article goes on to say that this will no doubt cause the prince further embarrassment, and as he has repeatedly tried to distance himself from the prisoner after allegations of Prince Andrew came out about his own involvement in sexually assaulting minors and trafficked women. A small website in the far corners of the internet have information on Heaven's Gate. According to the site, webmasters Mark and Sarah King have recently removed over 900 hours of left behind audio from the Heaven's Gate group in order to try and keep them hidden from the public. According to the site, Mark and Sarah King were kicked out of the group in the 1980s, but have tirelessly attempted to keep all information and relics and media from the group out of the hands of members of the public. The website describes how the Kings work as the gatekeepers of this mysterious group and have even threatened, intimidated, and attempted to sue people in order to have sole ownership of all possessions linking to the Heaven's Gate. The site describes how the couple are hiding over 1,061 audio tapes from the general public and have been a menace to researchers and experts who are trying to fully understand the group. There is a call to action from the author, who asks the next level, a supposedly higher authority on the subject and rights to the possessions, to do something about these two rogue interlopers, in the hopes that they can put a stop to the gatekeeping that is in place. Malika Kozik has reported for The Mirror that the body of a teenage girl was found dead in a suitcase in Paris this week. The article details how the young girl was supposedly tied up with the numbers 1 and 0 etched into her skin by some sort of machine. French police have launched a murder inquiry after the body was found. The girl's death was determined to be asphyxiation, and authorities released information about several cuts to the face and neck of the body. The victim's mother reported the girl missing on the Friday after she didn't return home from school, and although police are still unsure what the numbers mean, there are hopes that this is not linked to an underground ring or network of child trafficking. An article on theguardian.com by Sonia Soda, titled "As long as we avert our gaze from sexual abuse, we will continue to fail children," was released yesterday, detailing that ahead of a major inquiry, it's clear that the basics around protecting children from sexual abuse is not working. Soda speaks of how the majority of government policy exists to be implemented for short-term fixes, and that a conservative estimate of statistics would say that 15% of girls and 5% of boys experience some form of sexual abuse before the age of 16, which is 500,000 children every year. This would make it as common as physical or emotional abuse. Soda suggests that these statistics show us that we're moving in the wrong direction in dealing with this pandemic. The article details that we live in a society where it is shameful to be a victim of sexual abuse, which may result in the minimizing of abuse or the lack of disclosures in the first place. This week, the Independent Inquiry on Child Sexual Abuse will publish its final recommendations after running 15 investigations over 7 years into institutional abuse. The Observer columnist ends by saying there is an urgent moral imperative to drop the myths about child sexual abuse that make adults more comfortable, because it is the children who suffer the unthinkable price. Brendan Carlin and Jake Ryan for the Mail Online have released an article that is titled "Jess Phillips' Stalker Wins £100,000 on the Lottery," and the MP is given a terror alert over fears that he could use this money to attack her from jail. British Member of Parliament Jess Phillips has been given a terror alert after her stalker has won £100,000 on a lottery from his jail cell and may use it to carry out an attack on her. Rakeem Malik, aged 56, was convicted in 2020 after sending Jess Phillips death threats. He had also previously sent threats to former Prime Ministers Boris Johnson and Theresa May. Malik was already serving a life sentence for attempted murder when he made the threats, and that he was at a secure mental health facility when he bought a scratch card that won him £100,000, which he transferred to his prison account. Mrs. Phillips spoke about how the counter-terrorist unit showed up to her office, and this insurge of money could make Malik a threat even from behind bars. Malik was given a 5-year sentence in 2020 for making threats, and Phillips told the police that the threats were jihadist in nature and they were death threats. The Shadow Minister for Domestic Violence and Safeguarding has told the news publicly about how we need better protection for women and to lower the risk of violent attacks. Al-Jazeera.com has released an article this week detailing that Japan's current Prime Minister is calling for an investigation into the Unification Church to commence. These orders come amidst anger of the current leading party, the Liberal Democrats, having ties to the shadowy religious sect, after allegations have come forward of the church soliciting large donations from its vulnerable members. Along with the assassination of former Prime Minister who had so-called cosy ties to the Unification Church, Shinzo Abe, by angry son of devout follower Tetsuya Yomagami, who blames the church for his extremely difficult upbringing due to his mother's devotion to the South Korean sect, and the deceased leader and founder of the church, Sung Myung-moon. Current Prime Minister Fumio Kishida has said that there is a need to investigate, and it is urgent as, quote, the government has taken seriously the fact that there are a large number of victims as well as poverty and broken families, and they haven't been provided with adequate relief. Only 2 religious sects have been decommissioned and ordered to dissolve in Japanese history, one of those being notorious doomsday cults led by Shoko Asahara, Aum Shinrikyo, who were responsible for the deadly Tokyo subway sarin gas attacks in 1995. And if you'd like some more information on the Unification Church, you can check out previous episodes that I have done with notable activists and former Unification Church members working in the space to speak out about their experiences. That is the end of this news episode. If you find this content interesting or helpful, please consider giving the episode a like and subscribing to the channel. And if you'd like more ad-free and exclusive content, you can head over to patreon.com/The Cult Vault to support my podcast over there. I'm your speaker, Casey, host of the Cult Vault podcast.